between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Barker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the VRRC, where we're ready to go for our second night of racing in our latest season of touring car action, which really did kick off in grand style a week ago when we raced in France at McEwan for the season opener. And today we head to a very, very different kind of circuit, but hopefully one that is going to produce the same kind of side-by-side racing, plenty of overtaking that we enjoyed a week ago. Really, really looking forward to how the rest of the season goes. Andy McEwan here in the commentary box, joined by Jack Oliphant with Lewis Edwards on the broadcast. And Rich Hayden, well, technically still our race director, but actually racing as well within this particular championship. So we're all hands on deck for this one. And Jack, some fantastic racing, like I said, a week ago. More of the same this week, please.
Yeah, fingers crossed. There was a little bit of weather to spice it up, wasn't there? Magny-Cours, there was plenty of incidents. I think a few people having to get back used to driving in the touring cars without getting too outlandish with the manoeuvres. But you know what? We're all here for it as neutrals. We are, of course, at the, I don't know how to say this one, Andy. I say the Brno circuit, but of course there's no U in there, is there? How would you say it?
I would say Brno, generally.
Brno. Let's say Brno then, the Brno circuit, before we head off to Mugello, Barcelona, Red Bull Ring, Zandvoort, Donington and Hockenheim. I mean, what a calendar. It's filled to the brim. If we were actually doing this in real life, Andy, what a holidays we would be having.
Absolutely, yes. Although this particular region of the Czech Republic, not necessarily known for its sunny weather, I wonder whether that might be replicated in tonight's racing. But yeah, certainly a fantastic calendar, isn't it? From Italy to Spain to Austria, to Holland, and then a brief trip to the East Midlands, and then Hockenheim in Germany for the final round of the championship. And it should be an absolute thriller. A week ago, though, at McEwan, we had two pretty thrilling races, fairly eventful races, it must be said. Jack Smith won the first one from pole position, and then went to back that up with a third place finish in race two from the back of the field, despite, in true Jack Smith fashion, seemingly ducking and diving and dodging his way through some of the race two carnage. It was also a pretty reasonable night in the end for Joel Last. Can't believe that Joel Last came out of the opening two races second in the championship, given the fact that he qualified 15th for the first race a week ago. Came through the field nicely to 8th in the first race, and then was quite happy, I think, to settle for good points in second in race two, whilst Elliot Dalton-Ayres was on the podium in that second race as well. In fact, he won the second race, having had a bit of a nightmare in the first one. So a bit of an up and down opening week of the season, Jack. And, well, normally I'd be saying that consistency is the thing that puts you near the front of the field. But actually, certainly in the case of Joel and Elliot, having just one good race was enough to at least keep them in early contention.
Yeah, it's only early in the season, of course, isn't it? There is going to have to be consistency at some point, but I think it was more the fact that they were two drivers that didn't necessarily get pinged with any kind of penalty, which there was a fair few, as I said earlier on. We won't go into it for too much longer, but that is the reason why potentially you see Jack Smith with 52, and then there is a big disparity back to Joel Lask with only 35 points. Jordan Taylor was the solid opening round, therefore he had the driver of the round awarded to him, which is always quite nice as well. I do believe we can go to the championship table and actually see how the rest of the field are getting on. We've already mentioned the top three. Jack Smith with quite a substantial lead at this point. Oliver Gibson is in fourth place. Remember, he qualified in second place after the second amount of qualifying we had last week at McEwan. If anybody remembers the debacle we had with that, fingers crossed we won't have any midnight running and qualifying this time round. He got swallowed up, though, in the pack a little bit, and in race two struggled, but he still comes out in fourth position. Andy Carroll rounds out the top five with Jordan Taylor, Josh Martin, Fabrizio Torri, one of the new drivers to the championship, in eighth place, Andy Dorman in ninth, and Nicky Taylor rounding out the top 10 is how the championship currently looks. And Andy, there's plenty of prizes to be looked. The championship isn't for nothing, is it?
It certainly isn't. No, as always here at the VRRC, some good prizes on offer. The Cammus Simulation wheel is our prize for our champion, along with a champion's trophy as well. It's the curved gaming monitor, courtesy of Aegon, another one of our valued sponsors in third. And then the Riggs Racing seat, the sim seat for our third place driver. The driver in fourth and fifth place in the championship will receive some VRRC clothing, jackets and t-shirts seemingly up for grabs there. We've also got our Driver of the Round award, which is chosen by us, the broadcast team, with assistance from everyone watching at home and taking part in the YouTube chat. And that can be for a driver who puts together a really strong night, such as Jordan Taylor did a week ago, or for one specific event, a really good overtake, a really good race result, something like that. So do let us know as the evening progresses what you think for Driver of the Round. And in doing so, in interacting with us in the YouTube chat, you'll also perhaps put yourself in a good position to win the Fan of the Round. And that's the prize available for you. The NGK bobble hat will go the way of the viewer who we believe has made the biggest, most valuable contribution to the evening's broadcast, which is something that I'm sure many of you relish the opportunity to fight over. So they are the prizes then up for grabs at the end of the season. That is still 7 weeks away. For now, all of the attention turns to a little bit of a hidden gem of a racetrack, the Brno circuit in the Czech Republic. So let's head to Lewis Edwards to once again show us around the host venue for our second round of the championship.
Hello and welcome to Brno. I'm Lewis Edwards and I'm going to be taking you through the track guide for this second round of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. Heading into turn 1, I'm braking just as the curb ends on the left hand side down to 4th gear, trying to V off the corner, but most importantly trying to keep flat out throughout the corner and not going too wide on the exit. Staying left through 2 to minimise the distance, and now drifting over to the right hand side for turn 3. Going to be looking to brake at about 80 metres down into 4th gear, taking a later apex so that I can get over to the left hand side nicely to open up T4, which we do there, and then taking a later apex so I can get back to the power quickly so we can maximise the run down to T5 now. Up through the gears, going to be looking for your brake marker on the left hand side, down into 4th gear, carry good momentum through the corner for this one, and now we're heading in towards T6. Again, just carrying good momentum through the corner, taking a later apex for 7 so we can maximise the little run up into turn 8. Might have to short shift to avoid some wheel spin there. Now we've got kind of chicane at 8 and 9, just important to get over to the left hand side to really open up the exit from T9 here, as we've got a bit more of a sizable flat out run towards turn 10 now, so up through the gears, maybe an overtaking opportunity for the race here. Looking to brake just after the curb starts on the left hand side. I keep it in 4th to minimise the wheel spin on the exit, again taking a later apex. That seems to be a bit of a theme around here. Drifting back over to the right hand side now for the chicane of 11 and 12. It's very uphill, so you can really carry the speed through the chicane, but really important to open up the second part so you can just about take it flat out in the BMW. So we now approach 13 and 14. Entry to 13 is completely blind. You see the sky and not much else, so you just have to brake at a certain point and just hope you're on the right line. And now we're heading through the final corner. Important to try and open this one up as much as possible so you can take it flat out, back on the hybrid, and that completes a lap of Brno.
Well, for many of you, perhaps your first glimpse of the Brno circuit there, and a real favourite of mine, actually, one that I think should provide some fantastic racing in touring cars, particularly. Always used to when the World Touring Car Championship raced there back in the day, and because it's so wide, there's a really high average speed, but then lots of these big braking zones, lots of left-right combinations where you can take a multitude of different lines through any particular sequence of corner. It should, Jack, hopefully produce some good racing. I believe that was your first glimpse, perhaps, in the circuit as well. What are your first thoughts?
I was going to say, I'm going to have to take your word on the fact that he's going to produce some good racing, as are the people at home, I'm sure. But I'm actually quite looking forward to it. I didn't expect it to look such high grade as it is. It does look like a proper circuit. It looks a lot wider. When Lewis mentioned that it was a sort of a bike circuit more than anything these days, I was a bit fearful that we were going to end up in a Cadwell Park sort of situation. But it looks a little bit more high end than that, doesn't it? And I think that should hopefully encourage some people to get, maybe not their elbows out, but maybe have some ambitious lunges here, there, and everywhere. And I think it does look like a track that doesn't necessarily seem overly hard to drive, but I'm sure it'll be quite hard to race on, given the fact that there are so many overtaking opportunities.
Yeah, and the slipstream should be quite powerful. And of course, don't forget, all of the cars when we go racing later on will have their hybrid systems in use. They're not available during qualifying, which is the session that's getting underway now. But when we get into racing, that hybrid does become available, and it's always going to be a bit like a Monza or a Spa or a circuit like that, really, in that regard, because there are so many places where you could choose to use that hybrid. And that means that not only is there a risk that you might end up running out of the hybrid usage if you use it too often too early, but also anytime you jump for the hybrid book, there's a good chance that the cars around you won't actually be using it at that particular moment. They may well be using it down a different really long straight. So from a tactical point of view, Jack, that should be really interesting to follow.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. I'm looking at the track map as it stands at the moment, and I would say there's 5 straights that all look like they're about the same amount in length. So there's not like one obvious straight where you think, yeah, that's absolutely going to happen, like the Camel straight, for instance, at Spa or something. Whereas here, they're all sort of, they're not overly long, but there are 5 of them on the circuit, which means, you know, you have an opportunity 5 times around the track to actually use the hybrid, come back at some people, use it a little bit more tactically. And like you say, you could end up churning through it far quicker than you actually anticipate. And what I like quite often seeing is whether or not the drivers have practiced going into each and every corner on the back of using the hybrid, because of course you're going into the corner about 10 miles an hour quicker, which means your braking zone moves slightly, so you won't be able to lunge someone maybe as close as you would expect, or maybe you outbrake yourself. All these sort of things come into the equation, and that means I'm hoping that we've seen plenty of practice laps done by each and every driver. Jack Smith, who's just crossed the line, I think is about to set his first qualifying time as the first flying laps start to come in, and there's no surprise to see him go top of the timing.
He does indeed, a 2 minutes 3.52, so that is, well, nearly 9/10 faster than anybody else right now. It is Oliver Gibson who is the best of everybody else right now, second fastest for him, with Nicky Taylor third, Carl Felvis fourth. So a bit of team formation at the front, really. The 2 BMWs followed by 2, well, they're not actually teammates. I keep calling Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvis teammates. They're not technically anymore, are they? And of course, they're not even
told off by Rich.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the giveaway should be they're not even both driving the same car anymore, because we've got Nicky Taylor in a Honda and Felvis in a Hyundai, but that is still taking some time to sink in, unfortunately. On race 2, winner Elliot Daltonaire's 5th fastest, ahead of Craig Curtis, Andy Dorman, Jordan Taylor, Rich Hayden, and Joel Lask completing the top 10. And Lask is someone I'm interested to see how he gets on this week, Jack, because he did struggle in qualifying, particularly a week ago at Magny-Cours, managing only, I think I said 15th place on the grid for that first race. He really needs to try and get out of the blocks a bit more quickly this week to have a good chance of maintaining that strong championship position.
Yeah, like I said, he maybe took advantage of some other people having a few penalties, so he really needs to, if he wants to try and keep that position, or even try and challenge Jack Smith, which he is in the driver's seat to do, given the fact that he's second in the championship, he does need to sort it out. And we had a chat to him last week after we got onto the podium, and he did say that he just hadn't had that much practice, and that there was plenty of practice scheduled in. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether any of that has actually sunk in, or whether or not plans got away from him slightly. Another driver that didn't necessarily have the best qualifying, and in fact actually whole evening last week, was Josh Martin. He's currently in 9th place, inside the top 10, which is much better than he was doing in qualifying a week ago. I think he only got 12th. But even in the first qualifying or the second qualifying that we ended up having, both Joel and Josh really struggled. So it wasn't like a one-off thing where they just couldn't get the lap together. They genuinely didn't have the pace. So let's see if they can turn it around this time.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be the idea, isn't it? Let's see what lap time we have here, though, as across the line goes the number 9 car, gains a couple of places, actually, then, and moves up, briefly inside the top 10, but actually Fabrizio Torri goes third quickest, I beg your pardon, so a big improvement there for Fabrizio. It is Jack Smith fastest now, Oliver Gibson second, and Fabrizio Torri, who I can see has a lot of support from the YouTube comments section, and good to see, because he's driving really well. And actually, Jack had a pretty consistent run a week ago at Magny Kursted, our newest driver, 8th in the points after the first 2 races, and that's the kind of solid, if unspectacular, start to a season that could really be built upon as the weeks go by. If he can now start hitting the podium places pretty regularly, then he could be a real surprise come the end of the season.
I think if we don't talk about you too much, apart from you being new, that's a fairly decent start, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because we could either talk about you with being fantastic and brilliant, and to be fair to the likes of Eric Axelson, I remember him jumping into the championship and instantly getting onto the podiums, or we could start talking about the fact that you're messing up some other people's races potentially, which we have had people join the championship before, and that is the reason why we've spoken about them so often. Luckily, Fabrizio hasn't really done either of them. Flying under the radar, get some good practice in, make some friends as well, try and find a teammate to share setups and practice times with. That's what happens to a lot of drivers on this grid, and that's why we end up having these partnerships form. And I think, by the sounds of it, with his support in the YouTube chat, he seems like he's got friends. So there's no reason why he can't make a few more.
Indeed so. We ride on board with Josh the Builder, Josh Martin, as he winds his way through this infield section. Another interesting choice of race wear for Josh this evening, as we once again get to enjoy the onboard footage of the... he's a Marshall. He's a Marshall. That makes a lot more sense with the motorsport connection. Thank you, Dave, for, as ever, steering us onto the right track. Sometimes you just have to be on a certain level to understand some of the choices that Josh Martin makes, and there's a reason, I guess, that he and Dave are such close friends. So interesting attire, interesting driving style as well, as he makes his way up the hill in very exuberant fashion.
He is indeed. He's looking at what I want is the full-on onesie, though, the Marshall's onesie. That's what I'm looking for. He does look a bit more like a builder at the moment. He seems to be soaring at the wheel, though, a little bit. He's really trying to hustle that car around, but he is up to 6th place now, so maybe he's enjoying this week a little bit more than he was enjoying Magny Course, as he almost misses the pit entry, doesn't he? This will be to come in, strap some new tyres on, and get back out, won't it, with his BMW. Maybe that's why we saw a little bit last week that the back end of the Beamer was a little bit keen, wasn't it, to step out every so often with pretty much everybody, including the likes of Jack Smith. It's just he handled it a little bit better. Maybe, even though this is quite an undulating circuit, maybe the BMW set up a little bit better to suit this one.
I would have thought this circuit would suit the BMWs. It certainly always used to in the World Touring Car Championship, because they have that traction off the corners, particularly the final sector. Once you sort of come out of turn 10 and start climbing steeply uphill through 11, 12, and then 13 and 14, that uphill traction from the rear-wheel drive BMWs really should be a big advantage. It also really helps them with the nature of the racing that you get here. Lots of switchback moves are usually the order of the day, and again, that's something that the rear-wheel drive cars do tend to have a small advantage with. So, no surprise really to see 2 BMWs at the front right now. Worth pointing out, Oliver Gibson has improved slightly upon his previous effort, though. He is now on to a 2 minutes... 3.9, in fact, so improves again as I was saying that. So he had been on a 204.4, then it was 204.2, and now a 203.9, but that is still, Jack, 4/10 slower than his teammate.
Yes, people are struggling to catch up to him, aren't they, at the moment? Fabrizio is 3rd, but he's a good 3/10 back from Oliver Gibson. So, there is a bit of a disparity. Nicky Taylor, Carl Felvis round out the top 5. Elliot Daltonez, obviously winner of race 2 last week, only in 7th place. So Jack Smith is killing it at the moment. The only thing that can really stop him, potentially, is the race 2 reverse grids, which he struggled with slightly, didn't he? He tried to carve through the best that he could. He did still get caught up, but he was able to manage the race as best he can, and still found him, well up the orders. So he's pretty unstoppable right now. In qualifying, at least, it'll be interesting to see what the others have in store. Joel Lask, there he is, and struggling slightly, isn't he? All the way down, is at 14th place. I do believe we've got a slightly updated graphic on the left-hand side. If anybody has been keen-eyed and noticed that one, normally we only have the white numbers next to each name, and that is the race number. That's the number on the side of their cars and everything like that. But we now have a red number next to their name, and that indicates the weight for each driver. So normally we don't mention it that much, Andy, do we? Because there's a lot to remember for each driver and their each individual weight and how they've got it and everything like that. But the headlines are now displayed for everybody, all the viewers out there who can look at it. The weight, so Jack Smith has a lot of weight. I'll be honest, it's pixelated for me, whereas Fabrizio Torri only has 5 kilos of weight on. I can see that because he's only got 1 digit, and that's all I can really distinguish. But you can see everybody at home, that's what the red numbers mean. Those with a higher number obviously have more weight.
Yes, Jack Smith as championship leader has 45 kilos, I believe, and Joel Lask 40, I think. So I was about to make the point that that's why Joel Lask is struggling, because this is not an easy place to carry weight at, really. Lots of elevation change. That's not really great when your car is heavier than everybody else's, but also it's a very long lap. Anything over 2 minutes and you're really going to, every time you hit the brakes, every time you accelerate out of a turn, over 2 whole minutes, you're losing time. And so what would be around a circuit such as Donington Park, maybe only a 3 or 4 tenth of a second deficit, round here it could easily become a second or more's worth deficit, and maybe explains why Joel Lask is struggling a bit. What it doesn't do, though, Jack, is explain how Jack Smith is still on pole position by 4 tenths of a second, because he's even heavier.
Yeah, no, at this point, I'm sort of worrying whether he's actually just completely missed a corner off or something like that, and just we never find it, because I don't know how he can be that rapid. He's obviously finding a way, and again, it's pixelated, but what on earth is that in the background wearing a hat? Is it an elephant?
I think it's an elephant. I hope it's an elephant.
Yes, I think it is an elephant. So, and his washing as well. He couldn't be bothered tidying up beforehand, clearly before he went on the Zoom call. But if we sort of what I'm riding on board with him now, the qualifying, he's in that BMW. He's in the same as what Josh Martin was before, who we saw, who normally Josh is an extremely smooth driver. I'm not criticising his driving technique at all, because Josh is a superb driver. But if we have a look at Jack, he's sort of, there's maybe 2 bites of the cherry to get the car in, but on exit and midpoint as well, he's so smooth. He doesn't need to claw the car in. It's perfectly balanced once he actually gets to the apex. It's really very impressive, as I think we just had a driver who jumped up. Yeah, Andy Dorman to the top 5.
Yeah, nicely done, that. And now more improvements as well. Josh Martin, across the line into 3rd place. So Josh Martin is improving now nicely, and it means it is a BMW 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Jack Smith, Oliver Gibson, and Josh Martin. Martin about 2 tenths of a second, just less than 2 tenths of a second shy of Gibson's time. But Jack Smith, who we were riding on board with at the time, just put a new fastest lap of the session in a 2:03.27. So he is once again getting on for 7 tenths or so quicker than anybody else, and it's no real surprise to me, having watched that on board there, compared to, for example, Josh Martin, who we rode on board with through that final sector earlier on. Josh was all arms and elbows, opposite locks, sideways, really looked like he was fighting the car. Jack Smith looking as relaxed as anything, and whilst yes, Josh Martin's been able to improve to 3rd place, he is 9 tenths slower than Jack Smith. I think this really is one of those circuits, isn't it, Jack, where smoothness is going to really benefit you.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell in the driver's body language, how well the lap is going, can't you? And you can also sort of see the harmony with the car and the driver on the body language. If you had a look at Josh Martin or even Jordan Taylor, absolutely clawing everything out of his car, but I think that's just because he's coming in. When we're talking about Josh Martin, again, I feel bad comparing him to Jack Smith, but it's just because we were riding on board with him earlier. He was very much sort of shoulders hunched up. That's his driving style, I get it, but shoulders hunched up, quite tense, and sort of forcing the car to do what he wanted, driving the car quite aggressively. Whereas when you looked at Jack Smith, his shoulders were down, they were relaxed, he was sort of, the arms were nicely bent as well, and you could tell that they were, that's because the car was doing exactly what he wanted to do, and he was happy to sort of work with the car, whereas Josh Martin felt like he was trying to force the car to do what he wanted to do. So you can sort of tell that the setup has been absolutely nailed for Jack, and that's potentially one of the reasons why he's absolutely flying. The checkered flag has come out. Josh Martin is coming into the pits. We're sort of saying about many reasons why potentially Jack Smith has got his improved on Josh, but Josh is in the top 3, so that is a massive improvement compared to Magny Core last week.
Indeed so. So Jack Smith then looking like he is going to take the pole position then here at Brno. A fantastic qualifying effort from him, and no one else can touch him realistically. It's going to be an interesting first race, I think, coming up in just a few minutes' time. We've got Oliver Gibson here, who I think is still pushing on. No, he's heading for the pit lane, so that is qualifying done. And we will, for the second week in a row, be chatting to Jack Smith as pole sitter in just a couple of minutes' time. Welcome back to Brno, where our VRRC Touring Car Championship, Season 5 of our Touring Car Championship, is about to get into some proper racing action in the next few minutes. Qualifying completed, and the first of two 20-minute races is just around the corner. But before we dive into that first race, we do need to, as always, catch up with our pole sitter. This is a conversation that we had with Jack Smith on several occasions last season, and it's already the second time that we're catching up after qualifying this time around. Jack, that is what we call a dominant performance, though. Did you expect to have such a margin at the end of the session?
At the beginning of the weekend, no, as I'd never driven Brno in my life. So to be on pole and then having that margin is just unreal, to be fair. So yeah, but really like the track. First time ever racing here, so yeah, it should be good. Should keep my head down in the first race, and then yeah, we'll see what happens.
With such an advantage in qualifying, though, you must be confident that you will be able to break away here. We were pondering during the session, though, the importance of hybrid, and that could be perhaps the rest of the field's best chance to try and pin you back if they can get ahead of you using that hybrid early on. Do you think that maybe it could turn into a slightly scrappier race from there?
Yeah, that's only if I choose not to use mine, though. And I think if I see someone in my mirrors zooming up behind me, I think I'd probably end up pressing the button as well. So yeah, again, we'll just see what happens, see who wants to make moves and stuff. So I know we've got Josh behind me who's looking pretty racy as well, and Fabrizio as well. He's been pretty quick in that high end. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
What do you think to the track then? I know you said you enjoy driving it, but what sort of racing do you think it's going to produce? I personally think we'll see lots of good side-by-side stuff. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I can already vouch for that, as me and some of the guys on the grid have already been battling it out. I think been 4 wide in places, so expect some of that, but maybe not quite as aggressive as what we were doing in practice. But yeah, it'll be some good racing this track. I mean, I think we saw a move on every single corner, so you're in for a treat.
Excellent stuff. Let's hope so. Great to hear from you, Jack. Congratulations on pole position. We'll let you go and finish off your preparations for race 1. Best of luck.
Yeah, nice one, guys. See you in a bit.
So Jack Smith, pole position, and well, Jack Oliphant, that is music to my ears. Exactly the kind of stuff that I was hoping we'd see from this circuit. And with all of this space available to them, they really ought to be able to do that without driving into each other as well. So fingers crossed, we'll have a pair of pretty exciting races coming your way in probably about 5 minutes or so before the first race gets started, which gives us just enough time to talk about a rather exciting event coming up this weekend, which is not in itself VRRC themed, but the VRRC are going to have some presence at the upcoming Carfest South event taking place on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Take a look. Yes, so VRRC will be making their way down to the Laverstock Park Farm in Hampshire over the 25th to the 27th of August. That's this Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And that is all in conjunction with this fantastic charity, which I know Rich Hayden has been working with season long, and really looking forward. I'm going to be there helping Rich to run the simulator. I know Lewis is going to be there as well. What do you reckon, Jack? Do you fancy a bit of a road trip down south? It's an event I've always wanted to go to. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was actually invited to help run the stall, to be honest, but I couldn't make it down, unfortunately. So it would be an amazing trip. And as anybody said, I'm going to embarrass Andy now, but if anybody out there wants to meet the Sky Sports British GT head commentator Andy McEwan, then he will be there in the flesh. Go and take selfies with him and make him very uncomfortable, and then send them through to the VRRC channel. But yes, it will be a fantastic event, and of course the Lions Barber charity is an amazing establishment to be involved with. I've sort of been involved with them a little bit with work at British GT with Ian Goff and Rich and everything like that. So yeah, it's been amazing. I'm sure the show, as usual, as every year it'll be just as fun.
Indeed so, and really looking forward to spending a weekend, hopefully in the sunshine. I haven't dared look at the weather forecast this weekend yet, but fingers crossed I'll be back with a suntan for our trip to where are we heading next week? We're in Mugello, aren't we? So yeah, that would be suitable for our next round of the Touring Car Championship. So that's something exciting coming up in the real world this weekend. In the virtual world, though, lots going on as always behind the scenes here at the VRRC, including our fun races. Now, these are the races that are completely free for you all to enter. No payment necessary at all. The next of those is on Sunday, so if you're not going to Carfest, or if you are and you're going to be back home again by 8 o'clock, then you are completely welcome to join. Just throw yourself onto the Discord server and get yourself involved. And I'm guessing by the look of the graphic that it's racing of a Renault Clio variety in this week's fun race. So get yourself on track for that. And we've also got our Time Attack series, which is ongoing. It's the BAC Mono at the moment at another hidden gem of a circuit, a track that's really been forgotten in British motor racing over recent years. It is Ireland's Mondello Park, and you can, for 2 weeks, commencing 2 days ago, take to the track in the BAC Mono, and there are cash prizes for setting the top 5 fastest times. £15 for the winner, down to £3 for 5th place. A fixed setup, so you don't need to be an engineering mastermind to get a good lap. If you're a good driver and you enjoy the car, then get yourself out there and give it a go. So that is everything then that's going on behind the scenes here at the VRRC. But right now, front and centre is our Touring Car Championship and the BMW show a little bit at the front of the grid, with Jack Smith, Oliver Gibson and Josh Martin filling out the top 3 places on the grid for our first of 2 20-minute races here this evening. The blue and black BMW is Jack Smith, your current championship leader and reigning champion here with the VRRC. The black and pink alongside of Oliver Gibson, and the white and green, very good looking car that I have to say, is Josh Martin starting third. The red lights then are about to come on, and we are ready to go here around a brand new circuit, I think I'm right in saying, to the VRRC Brno. who is going to come out on top then on that very long run down to that very long first corner. It's time to find out now because the lights go out and Josh Martin makes a really, really good start there from third on the grid and might challenge for the race lead as they run down towards turn number 1. He goes to the inside of both of them. Brilliant stuff from Josh Martin, and he has got the early advantage. Fantastic stuff. Jack Smith, a bit of a slide there on gold tyres, but not as big a moment actually as Martin, who goes from hero, well, not quite to 0, but maybe to second place anyway after running way wide at turn 1. Smith back to the front, but already these three BMWs starting to distance themselves from the pack. Onto the brakes they go, into the left-hander at turn 3. Smith the leader, Martin and Gibson still debating second place. And it looks as though those two are going to be locked in side-by-side combat for most of the first half a lap.
Well, Jack Smith promised us exciting racing, and he's not exactly let us down, has he? Look how relaxed he is on the Zoom call, though, in the picture-in-picture. He couldn't give a damn, could he, the fact that he's been lunged into turn 1. He managed to get it back. Josh Martin, unfortunately, he'll be ruining the mistake of outbraking himself because he's now dropped down to third again. But side-by-side, a little bit further back, Kyle Felvers, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Really good, exciting racing here as we go through the first half of this lap. If this is the first half of one lap, Andy, we're in for a right treat.
I think we are, although already Jack Smith now starting to assert his dominance, isn't he, on the field? He was the best part of a second quicker than anyone in qualifying, and he's already nearly a second clear. And we're only halfway around the opening lap, dropping downhill now towards turn 10, the lowest point on the circuit, before they start the long climb back up the hill. And that was a big lunge there from Elliot Dalton-Ayres, trying to claim 6th place away from Nicky Taylor. That didn't quite work. The two cars continue to run nose to tail, and single file they will now start the long climb up through the left-right at turns 11 and 12, and then another left-right at 13 and 14 to bring them out onto the pit straight. Clean stuff so far, which is good to see, but there is just no catching Jack Smith.
No, the most surprising thing is actually the name I've just seen in the YouTube chat. It's a Bolton Scouser. Didn't know they existed, but here they are in the YouTube chat, looking for the Italian Stallion, which I'm guessing is Fabrizio. As Elliot Dalton-Ayres looks up the inside, was that a little bit more of a peak than an actual lunge? Yep, I think he's just trying to hold off, trying to give Nicky Taylor something to think about as Carl Felvers initiates the hybrid and tries to catch up to, I believe that is Fabrizio, isn't he? What can Carl Felvers do into turn 1? Not quite close enough, but Fabrizio maybe missing the braking zone, maybe offering a little bit more room to Kyle than he was anticipating going into the corner. But there we go, and I think it's still Fabrizio in the lead, just about.
Yeah, it is. I don't think he wanted to turn in because he wasn't 100% sure whether Felvers had committed to that move, and that's the big advantage, really, isn't it? To sort of weaving around in people's mirrors. You just plant that seed of uncertainty in their mind, and sometimes they don't really want to commit to the corner. Dalton-Ayres is ahead of Nicky Taylor now, so Dalton-Ayres into 6th position. So that's a place gain for the man who sits second in the championship. So early days in the season, I know, but he will definitely be wanting to try and pull his way up the order as quickly as he can before Jack Smith gets perhaps too far away at the front of the field. They're sort of keeping him pegged back now, aren't they? At about a second between Smith and Gibson, with the real battle going on behind. And dare I say it here, a bit of a Josh Martin train starting to form, Jack, because he's dropping away from the top two BMWs and has his hands full right now of Fabrizio Torri and the rest behind him.
Yeah, maybe he had a little moment in the sun, maybe initiated that hybrid off the line. Maybe that's why we saw him really pull round and overtake the top two. It doesn't look like he's ultimately got the pace to keep with them. Oliver Gibson's doing a great job at just about keeping onto the back end of Jack Smith. Who was that sliding wide? It's Fabrizio, wasn't it? Sorry, he's gone from third, I think, down to 6th, or maybe 4th down to 6th.
Yeah, losing ground, certainly. Dalton-Ayres has gone through. Carl Felvers sweeps around the outside of him as well, so a little mistake there from Fabrizio, maybe showing his lack of experience in this championship, although I gather has got previous sim racing experience. He's about to now have another move put on him, though, and that is Nicky Taylor sweeping through. So we've got Felvers and Taylor continuing to run in tandem, and they both take advantage of the mistake there from the Italian driver. Despite that, though, Josh Martin's still not getting away, and now Elliot Dalton-Ayres suddenly looks like he might have the pace to challenge for a podium place here. Again, wasn't the best of qualifying sessions for Elliot, but he's really coming good now in the early stages of the race.
Yeah, we've got the hybrids to think about, though, haven't we? Is he starting to churn through them maybe a little bit quicker than Josh Martin? What's Kyle Felvers doing? He's already back on it. He was only halfway through the corner. He was already on the hybrid, maybe fearing that he'd get washed a little bit wide there, but he doesn't actually take it over. There's a little bit of contact there with himself and Elliot Dalton-Ayres. He seems to have got through on the timing screen. How are they going to go going into turn 4? Well, Elliot's on the outside outside. Kyle on the inside there, 2 wide behind him as well, with Torrey and Taylor going through. Oh my days, it's Elliot Dalton-Ayres who just about got it, but Carl Felds is getting that cutback.
Yeah, this is that switchback manoeuvre that I said we'd see a lot of here tonight. You go tight to defend into a corner, you're wide on the exit, and there's so much space then for the other driver to try and get up your inside. As a result of that, Elliot Dalton-Ayres had to burn another one of his hybrid usage just to try and fend off Felver, so he pulls a gap on the other Hyundai, but as a result of using extra hybrid, Josh Martin using extra road there as he turned through the left-hander at turn 7, way wide of the apex, and despite picking up the late apex and having rear-wheel drive traction, he still loses some ground to Dalton-Ayres, who's right on his rear bumper now, out of the right-hander at turn 9, dropping downhill towards 10. Josh Martin hanging on really by the skin of his teeth here.
Yeah, but he's absorbing that pressure. It'll be interesting to see if we can get the picture-in-picture from his perspective, because just been told by Lewis Edwards, he's actually got 12 hybrids left, whereas everybody, oh mate, that is not a relaxed-looking builder, is it? That is definitely a builder. He's been told there's no tea bags. He is really clinging on right now, and but he has got 12 hybrids, maybe 11 left by the time I finish this sentence. Yeah, there we go. He's initiated another one, whereas Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Carl Felvers have used an awful lot more. They're in single figures at least, probably about 8 or 7 by the time we get to the end of this braking zone.
Oh, lunge being made there just behind. That was Nicky Taylor up the inside of Carl Felvers and manages to gain that place as well. So Nicky Taylor in the Honda, past Carl Felvers in the Hyundai. As for third position, Elliot Dalton-Ayres close enough maybe now to use the hybrid past the pits, but he's very mindful of the fact that he doesn't want to waste too many of them early on. He's already had to use some to fend off Carl Felvers, and maybe he's content just to sit behind Josh Martin for now, especially since Felvers and Taylor keep on, fighting behind, and that will just relieve the pressure a bit from Dalton-Ayres. It's still Taylor who has that 5th place, but Carl Felvers was definitely asking some questions of him as they drop down into turn 1. Josh Martin back on the hybrid button, climbing uphill, and look at the gap that it builds, about 0.6 of a second by the time they get to the top of the hill. So it is a huge benefit, but you've got to make sure you're looking after those hybrids so you've got some left for the closing stages.
And I'm curious as well, I'm going to listen to Lewis Edwards in my ear when I say this and ask maybe how the tyres are going to be dealing with this kind of circuit as well, whether we're expecting any kind of drop-off. Do they drop off quicker if you start using the hybrids and putting more pressure through, or do you reckon there's not much in that sort of thing? Apparently they're quite slow to get up to temperature. He is typing this in the Discord chat while I'm talking, basically. But I'm just wondering whether it can overheat with the rears on rear-wheel drive. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the BMWs fall away towards the end, whereas the potentially the front-wheel drives actually come in quite strong.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because that's not the norm. The counter to that, I would say, is that there are lots of very long, quite sort of high-speed corners, and on the front-wheel drive car, they do tend to overheat the front tyres. The left front, in particular, you'd imagine, would take a bit of a beating around a place like this. Josh Martin not really, again, making friends with the apex through turn 10 there, so that maybe gives Elliot Dalton-Ayres half a chance at attacking up the hill. Whilst further back, we've sort of forgotten, or I had anyway, about Joel Lask. Joel Lask is in 12th position, and I think might once again really be banking on a good second race here, because race 1, he's just not able to make the forward progress up the order, and that is Nathan Smith getting sideways behind. I think it was contact with Lee Morgan. I was just about to point out the new Cupra that is an addition to the grid for this season, and sadly it finds itself very much grabbing our attention, but not really for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Because it looked like a fairly decent battle that was going on at the rear end. Jack Smith, by the way, has just set another fastest lap, in case anybody was wondering who was leading the race. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame that the rear end of the grid that looked like it might be building up to something has slightly fallen away. But Joel Lask, I mean, I don't know what we can sort of say about him, Andy, at the moment, because it's so uncharacteristic to see him this far down and not able to have any kind of pace to push forward. Yeah.
Strange, isn't it, for someone who has been a championship contender on a few occasions in touring car racing, was quick in this car last season as well. It's just a little bit odd, maybe not able to quite as much practice in these days, maybe, that he was a season ago. I'm not really entirely sure, but yeah, a bit of a shame to see him languishing so far down the order. He's 5 seconds off the back of this group of cars that we're right in the middle of here, riding on board with Jordan Taylor. Ahead of us is Fabrizio Torri. Behind us, taking a very wild line into the corner, was Andy Dorn, and just behind them I can see in the rear view mirror Andy Carroll battling away with Craig Curtis. Those two are side by side as they head into this sort of stadium section, the natural stadium section with the big spectator bankings on the right hand side, and the virtual spectators here at Brno getting a great view of some good side by side racing there between Carroll and Curtis, with Andy Carroll getting the better of Craig and moving into the top 10.
It is worth noting just before, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it in between qualifying, there is still, of course, the opportunity for fan of the round. There's two, actually, opportunities for winning an NGK bobble hat. I'll get back to him in a sec. No, Andy Dormand actually sort of decides not lunging up the inside of Jordan Taylor. One opportunity is if you're engaging in your fan of the round, if you're engaging in the YouTube comments and everything like that. Bolton and Lad and Scouser was well up there with an opportunity, just with a fantastic name, but then blamed the commentators for Fabrizio's dropping down the order, so therefore they're not in a chance anymore. And there's also a random subscriber. If you just subscribe to the VRRC channel, then there's every chance you can get your name picked out of a hat to win a hat, as Elliot Dalton-Ayres distracts me, really taking the challenge to Josh Martin.
Indeed so, but that didn't really work. Backfires a bit now and brings Nicky Taylor onto his tail. Down the pit straight they go. Dalton-Ayres again having to use the hybrid to defend, but it worked. Gets him away from Nicky Taylor slightly and almost gave him a chance to slip up the inside of Josh Martin's BMW through the first corner. And Elliot Dalton-Ayres down to 4 hybrid usage remaining now compared to 8 for Josh Martin. So that's 4 occasions now in which Josh Martin could use the hybrid and Dalton-Ayres wouldn't be able to keep up with him. In fact, Dalton-Ayres under threat again now. Nicky Taylor pulling to his outside line, had his nose ahead heading into turn 3, but did not have the preferred line, and so as a result does not have 4th place.
Trying everything, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, but now Nicky Taylor obviously as well. They're trying to be inventive with all the moves, aren't they, and try and take advantage, but not quite seeing as much movement as maybe we were just expecting. There is still 8 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Maybe there's a sense of maybe slightly being cautious, but I doubt that, Andy, because we're talking about Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvis and Elliot Dalton-Ayres here, aren't we? And they're not known for their cautious nature in terms of racecraft.
Sure, I don't know what you mean. Yes, they are usually not backwards in coming forwards, are they? And I think it's just a testament really to how evenly matched they are, and also that hybrid being used as a defensive mechanism, not just an aggressive sort of overtaking method. That sort of means that drivers are able to respond to pressure and then pull out a bit of a gap again. Dalton-Ayres made a big mistake there though as he came out of turn 9, and so defends heavily into 10. Can Taylor go right round the outside? That is an option down there. Has he got the grip? And is he going to be left the space on the exit? Dalton-Ayres wants to close the door, but I don't think he's been able to. Nicky Taylor still up the inside and keeps on coming. He's late on the brakes. Later, even still, was Dalton-Ayres, but he was too late on the brakes. And Nicky Taylor continues this nice run up the order. He's gained another spot, and Dalton-Ayres, I fear, might be about to lose some more.
Yeah, fair play to Nicky Taylor. Let's get that out of the way first before we talk about how Carl Felvis got through on Elliot as well, using that little bit of hybrid, I think. As Elliot didn't activate his, he probably knew that the place was going to be lost. Easy just to let them go and attack a little later down the lap. Fabrizio Torri couldn't quite get past and has actually dropped off as a consequence and right into the grasps of the other Taylor, Jordan Taylor. No relation, of course, but Jordan is dragging Andy Dorman along with him, and I believe Andy Carroll as well. So this is going to be probably about a 5-car battle, maybe even 6-car battle. I would say likely for 5th position. Nicky Taylor looks like he's got decent pace to pull away potentially, even if his qualifying didn't quite go to plan. Having said that, Carl Felvis is right on the back of Nicky now, thanks to that hybrid.
He is indeed not really close enough to attack at the top of the hill there. Dalton-Ayres defending from Fabrizio as he goes through the left at 3, but that leaves him on the outside then for turn number 4. Fabrizio's got the better line, and the next 2 corners at the bottom of the hill are both right-handers as well, so this should be 6th place now for Fabrizio. Andy Dorman, by the way, behind them using the hybrid as well, trying to join in this battle as well. Wheel to wheel they go through the first of these 2 consecutive 90-degree right-handers. The second one a little bit faster than the first. Fabrizio's through, but now he runs out wide, and again that tight line into a corner really scuppers your exit speed. He's having to really now position the car cleverly to try and keep Dalton-Ayres behind, which he does manage to do, and Fabrizio Torri up now into the top 6.
Yeah, and here comes Andy Dorman, interested in trying to take that place away from Dalton-Ayres. He's really having a bit of a mare in this second half of the race, and there's a contact. I don't know if there is or not. There was. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Dalton-Ayres now comes through in just inside the top 10, doesn't he? 10th place, not really where he wanted. Now, it's a long way away from the camera that we saw, so I won't be saying anything, but it looked like a bit of a shame for Elliot, that's for sure.
It is a shame for Elliot, definitely, because this had been a good race in the early stages, and then it all started to unravel. One little mistake about a lap ago up at this part of the circuit was enough to set off that chain reaction of events. He lost a whole load of places, he was on the back foot, and other drivers then saw that as their opportunity to take advantage, and unfortunately didn't cut him a huge amount of slack as they did so. Right, we're following Jordan Taylor now. He's got Andy Dorman on his case. We're now following Rich Hayden, who's going the wrong way. Rich is supposed to be going up the hill, not down it. He does now get going again. He's going to fall back to some of the other drivers who have had issues in this race. Nathan Smith goes through. Chris Blakey, I think, is going to close in behind, and that's not ideal for Rich Hayden, who, well, whether he jumped or was pushed, I'm not so sure, but I'm sure he will let us know after the race, Jack.
Yes, he tends to jump in, doesn't he, and let us know on the Discord chat as well. And it's lucky he needs someone to run that simulator at the weekend, Andy, because taking the mick out of him like that probably won't go down particularly well. Here comes another little bit of a lunge. Andy Dorman versus Andy Carroll, isn't it? Actually, the two Andys getting in tonight. And I think they're still side by side. Is that Dorman on the outside? Yet Carroll makes the move stick, and Elliott just about onto the back of them, but is struggling with the amount of hybrids, I believe, that he has. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether he can make a move. Speaking of hybrids, Jack Smith, I'm pretty sure he's still on 14 or something like that, and he's just setting purple sector after purple sector.
Yeah, he's making this look a little bit too easy, isn't he? Can we start a petition to double the ballast that he has to carry for the next round? Because at this point, it's really not it's not even a car advantage that he's got a massive pace advantage over some of the other car drivers in BMWs. So yeah, really impressive stuff this from Jack Smith. Good battling going on further back here then. 3 Hyundais leading a Ford Focus, a bit of a rarity actually in this championship, the Ford Focus, but Andy Dorman pedaling one well just inside the top 10, but he's got Elliott Daltonaires, Andy Carroll and Jordan Taylor right in front of him, and he wants to try and gain some more places before the checkered flag, which disappointingly, Jack, is only 3.5 minutes away.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, really. The fortunate thing, though, Andy, is the fact that we've got 20 more minutes, and it's that reverse grid as well. And really don't know what to expect from that. We have a really wide track, which means, you know, everybody should be able to make moves without the contact. But it also is probably a little bit too inviting to go 3 or 4 wide, isn't it? So hopefully the drivers have learnt their lessons from last week, as that camera angle always makes it look like someone's lunging the other, doesn't it? And always gets me a little bit excited. But Andy Carroll is still behind Jordan Taylor, as Fabrizio Torri has somewhat dropped this little group, hasn't he? He's trying to catch up to Carl Belvis again. Andy Carroll looking interested, but Jordan Taylor's not phased.
No, he is not. And Andy, there's a little bit of touchy-feely stuff there on the exit of turn 1. Andy Carroll trying just to get the overlap. Jordan Taylor, you'll be shocked to hear, didn't really appreciate that, and is making his feelings known there on to his team and teammates, who I'm sure are all very interested to hear about the roughing up that he's getting from Andy Carroll right now, as if they don't already have their own hands full. Andy Carroll's not relenting, though, is he? He's got some good pace here in the closing stages. Shouldn't be massively surprised, though. Carroll's always been a bit of a dark horse in touring car racing, and he went well last time out at Magny-Cours. He's looking around the outside now of Jordan Taylor, who I don't think is going to be too willing to leave him space on the outside line. They've kept it clean so far. Taylor stays ahead, but this just stacks the whole group back together.
Yeah, and I thought Elliott Daltonaires is going to make a move on both of them. I think he's interested in Andy Carroll right now, isn't he? Jordan Taylor might get away with it just for the fact that Daltonaires sniffs some opportunity. There he goes through on Carroll. Jordan Taylor will probably have about half a lap where he doesn't have to worry about being overtaken, but he'll be interested to see behind him what's going on. And it is Andy Carroll still ahead of Daltonaires, with Andy Dorman looking, forcing Daltonaires actually to go quite defensive here, isn't he? It's I don't think Carroll did anything to Taylor that was really necessary of the stewards getting involved. So, but, you know, Taylor will be extra motivated to keep him at arm's width, I'm sure, after that little bit of contact. Dorman up the inside. No, Daltonaires gets that sort of different line that Lewis was telling us about before, Andy, wasn't he? I mean, all 3 drivers, Dorman, Carroll and Daltonaires, going for those different lines.
Indeed so I'm slightly distracted by the truly fantastic conversation that's going on in the YouTube chat right now. Keep that up, everyone. This, though, has been one of the rare useful bits of information I picked up from the YouTube chat. Fabrizio Torri has caught Carl Felvis for 5th position. This is a really good drive, this, from Fabrizio. Got displaced a bit in the early stages, but he's fighting back nicely. We're starting the final lap of the race now, and he's got a genuine shot at climbing back into the top 5. Out of turn 1 they go. Is he going to jump on that hybrid. Yes, he is, but so is Felvis ahead of him. So in theory, shouldn't be much to choose between these two up the hill. Now, what I can't quite see on our graphic is what their hybrid allocation is. I think they both have at least one left, but how many they've got compared to each other, we will try and find out in a moment or two. You guys at home can see quite clearly, I'm sure, but not on our feed. Fabrizio has one more than Kyle. There we go. Thank you, Lewis. And that, Jack, could be the pivotal advantage.
Yeah, it could all come down to the final straight, couldn't it? And there, as I said, there are plenty of opportunities on this track, at least 5, one of which is going down towards the start-finish line, where the finish line is actually about 2/3 of the way down the straight, so it could come to a drag race in there. And for anybody out there wanting some breaking news, Jack Smith has had a purple sector taken away from him. Oliver Gibson has managed to get that. It's about as exciting as Jack Smith and Oliver Gibson's race has gotten, to be honest, since the first lap. But it's a battle of the times now between those two. Jack Smith currently winning it. Oliver Gibson putting in some good ones. And to be fair to Oliver Gibson, actually, there's less than 2 seconds between them, or around the 2-second mark between them. So all the credit goes to Jack Smith for winning. But really, Oliver Gibson hasn't been dropped, and he's dropped everybody else along with it.
Yes, although Jack Smith has still got 9 uses of hybrid left. He's now starting to use them coming back up the hill. Hasn't even used half of his allocation. That is the ultimate power move, isn't it? Through the final couple of corners he will come then, and Jack Smith is going to coast this one home in one of the easiest looking race victories I think we've seen for quite some time. It's a second victory in the season for the reigning champ, who is well on course, you would suspect, to being a title contender again this time around. Oliver Gibson, though, with a strangely uneventful race, actually, by Oliver's... did he steal the fastest lap there, Jack?
He did a 2:02.831, 200th quicker than Jack Smith. Sorry, as I said, I've got to give Oliver Gibson some props somewhere. He's probably fed up of coming second.
That is brilliant stuff there from Oliver, and Jack maybe will regret not using some more of those hybrids now. So there we go. Jack Smith the winner, Gibson second, and Josh Martin third. So the top 3 on the grid are the top 3 at the end of the race, ahead of Nicky Taylor, Carl Felvis, and Fabrizio Torri. So Carl did manage to hang on to the top 5 finishing position there from Fabrizio, but only just. It was very, very close there in the closing stages. So really exciting stuff there in the midfield. Jack Smith making it look easy, but actually ends up giving away some championship points there. I believe it's still 3 points for setting a fastest lap, so may live to regret that by the end of the season, but he does at least have a second victory of the season to celebrate, something he'll be doing with us in the commentary box in just a few minutes. Well, welcome back to the VRRC, where we've just had a pretty crushing performance from our now 2-time race winner this season, Jack Smith. A lights to flag victory from pole position, and well, the ultimate power play there, Jack. You hardly used any of your hybrid as well. It certainly looked like a very easy victory. Was there anything that troubled you over the last 20 minutes?
I was keeping my eye on Ollie, that was for sure. I was making sure there was a gap there, but yeah. I think he was going for fastest lap at the end, which he got by a few hundredths, which, yeah, fair play. That's a quick lap. So, but yeah, it was a decent race. There was not many mistakes apart from last corner of the last lap, where I just got a bit too much oversteer and binned off the final fastest lap attempt, and that was it. That was it. So, but yeah, it was just get my head down, drive as many laps as we can without mistakes, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, it really did look as simple as that. You didn't use many of your hybrids, though. Was that a conscious choice? I'm interested as to why you didn't feel the need to burn a few more of those.
I felt, since I had the pace, I just felt like I'd be more consistent just not using them. And so I think the lap times, they differenced in about like a tenth or so. Whereas when I started using the hybrids, I made little mistakes here and there because your braking point changes. So yeah, I was just thinking about that when trying to get ahead in the race, and then later on, once I've got the gap, I can play around with it. So that was what was going through my head at that point. But yeah, fair play to Ollie though. He was definitely there, and he was right on my tail. So yeah, he's really quick recently. So really proud.
Absolutely, and even Josh Martin was a bit of a thorn in your side there in the early stages. He got a really good start. You're going to need a good start now in race 2, though, because as always, reversed grid for that second race. Of all the tracks we race at, though, this one surely is one where you'll be feeling confident of making progress.
Yeah, I just got to stay out of trouble, unlike Manicore, where we got tangled in a few incidents. So yeah, keep it clean and calculated, and just pick my moves if and when, and we'll see what happens.
Excellent stuff. Well, Jack, congratulations. A second victory of the season, an extended championship lead already. Things looking good for the DK Power Racing BMW. Best of luck for race 2.
Cheers, Andy.
It's Jack Smith, the race winner. But as we heard there, Jack Oliphant, he was being pushed hard in the closing stages. And, the second place man, even managing to steal a few championship points away from him in the end.
Yeah, Oliver Gibson, congratulations on the second place, but you have no idea how excited I was when you got that fastest lap right at the death there. You must be pretty happy as well.
Yeah, I mean, perfect race, exactly what we wanted. I was a bit worried when Josh got his start. I was like, okay, didn't expect to be in the BMW against the BMW, and that BMW be so quick off the line. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, it was pretty much a perfect race. I had fun going for the fastest lap as well. I saw Jack put in a 2:0 something. It was an 8. I was like, I'm never beating that. And then I saved up all my push to pass to the last lap, and I just tried my hardest. So yeah, I'm happy I got some couple points.
Well, you were rapid, and I would say you're slightly more professional than Jack as well, because I can see in the background there you're throwing out the sponsors' names as well. The DK Power number 5. Give us, in case ladies and gentlemen at home cannot read them, give us a bit of a shout out for what that says.
Well, of course that's my number and my team, and then we got Simon Thorpe Motor Services, Sherman Rubber MOT Centre, the Hop Kevin Howden new sponsor. Obviously, Jack said about the table last week, but we won't mention that. And then Phil Bob was he was a friend of ours, and he helped with the racing in real life, and he was a great guy. So I've put him on the whiteboard, and I think he's on the car as well. So nice to have him with us.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, just very quickly, last point, Oliver, from your perspective, you said about Josh Martin right at the start, didn't quite have the pace to keep the problem going, but was that a bit of a heart-stopping moment?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I saw in my mirror, I think I saw a green BMW go flying past, and I was like, oh boy, here we go, 3 wide. And luckily for me and Jackie, he went a bit wider. Might have been cold brakes, cold tyres, I'm not sure. And then managed to duck under and get a good launch turn 3, I think it was. So yeah, hopefully race 2 we have a better start than we did last time.
Well, it wasn't that bad, considering you're only challenged by one driver, Oliver. Good luck for race number 2, and maybe we'll be speaking to you a little bit later.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well done to Oliver then. Now, third place finish in that race went the way of Josh Martin, and Josh had a much busier time of it than the drivers who finished ahead of him. Josh, fantastic start, first of all. You've really got that part of your race nailed down, and you did at least have a brief moment there in the spotlight in the race lead.
Yeah, even I was surprised by my start, to be completely honest with you. I had no intention whatsoever of passing Jack Ollie, because I know they're so fast. And I was a bit worried about tyre wear, actually, because I've been struggling with sliding the rears around way too much. But Jack gave me some brake bias tips going into qualifying, so I applied them, which I think helped with my tyre wear a little bit. But I was worried about that, so I just wanted to run my own pace. I knew I couldn't run their pace without killing my tyres. But yeah, I was surprised when I went past both of them into turn 1.
It was a great start, and again, you're going to need one of those really in race 2, where we've seen in the past you've had some varying fortunes, haven't you, in these reverse grid races? What are you feeling? Is tonight a good night, and we're going to see you back on the podium again?
Yeah, I've got the high vis on, so hopefully I'll be well seen going through the pack of cars. Because it doesn't take a lot to be turned around in the rear-wheel drive car. But no, hopefully keep it all nice and clean, and I'll see where I can end up.
Yeah, your mate Dave is referring to you as head marshal for this week. I believe that there is some real-world relevance to this. Do I gather you've been giving marshalling a bit of a go recently?
Yeah, I'm interested in doing some Targa rallies, so I went along to one on the weekend, and Dave managed to get me roped into doing some marshalling. So yeah.
Excellent stuff. Well, that is good to see, and yep, you're certainly standing out on our broadcast this week for the one reason, which is good stuff. Josh Martin, congratulations on the podium, and yeah, best of luck for that second race.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
So there we go. That cleared that up a little bit. Josh Martin then on the podium, always good to see. And he'll be hoping for more of the same in the second race of the evening. So we're not that far away, I don't think, before we get cars gridded up on the for our second race of the night. A quick reminder, everyone, to subscribe to the channel. That's the only way to be entered into the random draw to win the second sort of fan prize of the week. You have to have subscribed to us here on YouTube, so make sure you've done that, and you will be entered for free into the draw. Also an opportunity, Jack, before we move on into our second race, to touch upon the VRRC. Actually, we've done a lot of talking about their championship tonight, but they offer an awful lot of different services, one of those being driver coaching. Now, we've both been down there to the VRRC Sim Centre, but we've also heard, haven't we, from lots of drivers, how beneficial that driver coaching can be.
Yeah, for sure. I think even in real life racing, whenever I used to go to an actual a sort of event, to race the Genettas or anything like that, it was always useful to go and get some driver coaching on the sim beforehand. So whether you're a sim driver or whether you're a real life racer, it's going to be really very beneficial to get out and do some virtual laps before you jump out into the real thing, or just to get a couple of 100 laps under your belt before you go. But it's pointless sort of doing those 100 laps where you're just repeating the same bad habits. Always nice to have a driver coach, someone like Rich or Lewis, or someone to help you out to sort of iron out some mistakes and get you those extra tenths that you sort of need, which the likelihood is the likes of Jack Smith and people like that don't necessarily need for this championship, but maybe a few of the other drivers need, if they want to step up. The driver coaching is a great option for them to try and compete with the likes of the front runners, or in real life, so you don't go into a bend 20 miles an hour too quickly and end up writing the front end of the car off, something that I did a few too early times.
And I am not going there. Right then, Rich Hayden, starting from pole position for our second race, has a chance now, doesn't he, to display some of those driving skills that he can pass on to you if you do decide to partake in some driver coaching. And if that doesn't set him up for failure, nothing will. Red lights are illuminated. We've got Rich Hayden and Kenny Press together on the front row of the grid. Lights out, away they will go. Good start made there by Chris Blakey, looking the Toyota from third on the grid. And he's going to try and pull a Josh Martin, I think, get up the inside line into turn one. But then the second phase of the start, not quite as strong, so Hayden will hold on to the advantage. Who's going to be second? There's a bit of a squeeze. The two Toyotas side by side. Malachi sideways and straightened up by someone else. That was very fortunate, because that could very easily have turned into touring car skittles then through turn one. Thankfully, he got it gathered together, and I think they're all still there.
Yeah, just about. A-Lock Irongar is falling down the order, but he didn't exactly get wiped out of it, so that is fortunate, as Rich Hayden does lead the way. He's got Chris Blakey just behind Kenny Press as well, always towards the front end, and he manages to stay there quite a lot of the time in a lot of these reverse grid races, but they're all queuing up to try and sort of be the quickest to get through. Carl Felbers is doing a fantastic job of it. He's up to 8th place. Craig Curtis and Joel Last. Joel Last being overtaken by Jack Smith as well. I'm not entirely sure sort of who we're looking at. I'm looking at the leaderboard on the left-hand side, Andy. I'm sort of missing all the action of Elliot Dalton-Ayres going through and people loading up the curbs. It's very frantic.
Oh, what a big slide on cold tyres for Kenny Press. He's going to rejoin the circuit, thankfully, well out of the way. In fact, that might be a hardware failure, actually, because he's pulled up at the side of the road as Kenny. That's a shame. So Kenny Press's race looks like it's done. What a start this has been, though, from Elliot Dalton-Ayres into the podium places already. When you compare that with the likes of Josh Martin, still languishing well outside of the top 10, that is particularly impressive. Where is Jack Smith? I wonder, on race one, 7th place for the race one winner. In fact, we're following him now as there's a moment at the front of the field. That was Chris Blakey briefly into the race lead. He's too late on the brakes, though, and Rich Hayden gets it straight back again.
Yeah, but he's got a few car lengths as well between himself and second place, and then Elliot Daltonaire is charging them down, which is a pretty scary driver to have chasing, to be honest. Here is my days. Who are we watching now? It's Nathan Smith, isn't it? I was confused because I could see Smith, but it's Nathan Smith and Jack Smith, just to make it extra confusing. Nathan Smith pretty much, I think, gives that one up, doesn't he? Realizes who is overtaking him, makes sure he doesn't lose too much time himself, and holds up the likes of Andy Carroll.
And that is the great thing, isn't it, about having a reputation like Jack Smith's. He's the reigning champion. He's clearly been the pace setter this week. Some drivers will not want to waste time battling with him. They'll just also almost put the indicator on and move out of the way. Now, in fairness, Carl Felvis is not one of those drivers, but Jack Smith able to get up the inside. I don't think he even used hybrid there, just had better traction off the final corner, and he now moves through up into 5th place, then jumps on the hybrid, but so does Felvis right behind him. But the BMW has already gone and is setting sail after the race leaders. Race still being led there by the Cupra of Rich Hayden, Chris Blakey 2nd, Elliot Daltonaire's 3rd, with Jordan Taylor 4th and Jack Smith 5th. So Smith's making good progress so far, but he's now about to come up against a few drivers who I think might put up a bit more of a fight.
Yeah, I'm slightly surprised by Kyle, but maybe he's just maturing in his old age of being, I don't know, 16, I think, and deciding that it's not quite worth it. Whereas Daltonaire and Nicky Taylor want to be into 2nd place, don't they? Where is Chris? In fact, no, it's Daltonaire's going past Chris Blakey. My apologies. And then it's Nicky Taylor, isn't it? So yeah, Chris Blakey maybe finding out that he's not quite as quick as some of the front runners, something he probably already knew, but is getting reminded of. And then Rich Hayden is the one who's going to start panicking soon, isn't he? Realising that a lot of the championship front runners are starting to bear down on him. There's only a second between himself and Elliot, so he'll be very much hoping to get to the front of the field as quickly as possible. And then everybody else will start giving a headache to the likes of Jack Smith, because in terms of the championship, Andy, Daltonaire definitely needs some help.
Yes, he certainly does. I think they all do, really, don't they, on the current performance from our championship leader. Out through turn 10 they go, then climbing back uphill, and towards the end of another lap, Jack Smith then has caught Jordan Taylor. The trouble is that Jordan's sort of getting boxed in behind Chris Blakey here, so this has all hallmarks of a pretty entertaining battle. Blakey determined to try and hang on to a podium place. He's having to go defensive, though, because Jordan Taylor's on the hybrid. He had a better run up the hill, and he's going to sweep round the outside into 3rd place. Really good driving that from Jordan Taylor. Clever usage of the hybrid, and a good example there of what I chatted about earlier on before the racing began. Just because you're jumping on the hybrid down one particular straight doesn't mean that the cars around you will also be using it there, and that seemed to work in Taylor's favour. Jack Smith likewise now down the pit straight. In fact, he's going to try and get past both of them. Look at that. Drives past Blakey, gets to the inside of Jordan Taylor, and the BMW's up to 3rd.
I do not blame Jordan Taylor for not realising that Jack Smith was going to be there, because not a chance has he ever got into that corner, having overtaken someone, expecting someone else to fly up the inside of him as well. He's having a little bit of a nibble back now, though, isn't he? Trying to jump up the inside, but Jack Smith just gets into the corner. He's able to brake just a little bit late to get the car rotated, and once he gets out of a corner, you're pretty much left for dead. Look at that, 2 exits and he's already gone without any use of hybrid, compared to the likes of Jordan Taylor, who is not a slow driver whatsoever. He's probably sat there thinking, what on earth do I have to do to keep onto the back of one of these BMWs? But like you said, Andy, a lot of it is, sometimes you just turn up to a track and it is suited to the rear wheel drive. Physics just takes over sometimes, doesn't it? And it doesn't matter what you can do in terms of balance of power. Some tracks are suited to front wheel drive, some tracks are suited to rear wheel drive. You just hope by the end of the championship there's an equilibrium between them.
I mean, yes, there's some truth to that, but, Josh Martin's 10th, Oliver Gibson is 12th.
Well,
they're both in BMWs as well. This is just the Jack Smith effect, honestly. We know how good he is in touring cars, and in the BMW, I think he's got a car that really gels with his driving style, and actually these European circuits, I think, probably favour his very smooth, very sort of settled driving style, maybe a bit more than some of the old-school, narrow, bumpy circuits that we have here in the UK. Right, it's all closing up now at the front, isn't it, I think, because Elliot Daltonaire is perhaps spurred on by the arrival of the championship leader on his tail. Is starting to eat into that advantage being held by Rich Hayden. Both the 2nd and 3rd place drivers jumping onto the hybrid now as they climb the hill and continuing to gain on Hayden. Daltonaire is very late on the brakes there into the penultimate corner. So this could go one of two ways for Jack Smith. He's in a good position to get a double race victory here, but he has to play his cards right. Gets off the final turn well, goes again onto the hybrid hybrid button, as does the race leader. Dalton Ayres didn't, and that ultimately is what allows Jack Smith through into second. And now the only thing standing between Jack Smith and perhaps a second win of the night is one Rich Hayden, who, well, how's Rich going to play this? He's got to be careful, hasn't he? But he will not want to turn down an opportunity for a race win either.
Well, no, he's got 13 minutes, so if he only had 13 seconds, he'd probably be quite confident. But 13 minutes to try and hold on to this. And I have to say, Jack Smith has gone from last to second in 7 minutes, and he looks like he's just wondering what on earth he's going to order at Costa Coffee. But even then, he gets up to the back end of Rich, almost makes contact. He doesn't look like he cares. Look at that, scratch your nose and see what you can do.
Just carried so much more speed into the corner, late on the brakes down the hill, and Rich Hayden was turning into that corner whether Jack Smith was there or not. Jack bounces over the curb again. His facial expression doesn't change one iota, and he continues to hunt down the Cooper driver in front. He's got to be careful though, because Dalton Ayres is there. Look, Dalton Ayres is up the inside of him actually as they head through the infield section. He just manages to fend him off, but that's the worry here, isn't it, for Smith? He's clearly quicker than Rich Hayden, but if Rich is going to get his elbows out and defend this place, which it looks on current evidence like he will do, he could get backed up into the Hyundai driver behind him.
Well, I think Jack, the only slight frustration I can see in Jack's eyes, if it weren't pixelated, oh my days! Wow. I don't think he meant that. I was about to say it's the fact that Rich is about 5 miles an hour slower on every apex than he wants to go, and I really don't think Jack expected him to break that early. What a move. I'm so glad we were on board for that.
That was fantastic. The reactions there from Jack Smith. I think you're right. I think maybe the idea had crossed his mind, but he didn't really expect that sort of closing rate and just jinked to the inside at the last second. Yeah, absolutely no panic, no stress. So easy in that situation to just twitch the steering wheel a bit too much, especially in a rear-wheel drive car. That could easily lead to a spin under braking, but none of that whatsoever from Jack Smith. He knew exactly what he was doing. And look, he's already starting to scarper now with Rich Hayden 0.8 of a second back under pressure from Elliot Dalton Ayres, who comes up to challenge. Joel Lask, meanwhile, Jack, is in the pit lane. Lee Morgan and Nathan Smith were already there, but that is major drama for Joel Lask, the man who was second in the points coming into this week, out of the race.
Yeah, and well, the championship-wise, I was going to say it's going to hurt him, but the fact that Jack Smith is winning this one means he's going to pretty much take almost perfect points from this evening. Only Oliver Gibson has managed to take points away from him, of course, with that fastest lap. So Elliot Dalton Ayres is still trying to find his way past into second place, not making it look, I was going to say quite easy, but to be fair to Rich, actually, it wasn't easy for Jack Smith, was it? It's not like Rich was over-defending or anything like that, but I think Jack Smith was sort of trying to figure out where the best opportunity was, and I don't think he really actually figured it out. It just sort of presented itself, and he thought, "Oh God, I've got to take this now rather than anything else." Elliot Dalton Ayres, does he have the same kind of reactions, or will he have measured this one up a little bit better?
Yeah, going to be interesting, isn't it? But no, you're right. Rich Hayden driving pretty well, actually. He's really not defending at all, is he? He's just sort of taking his line, turning into the corners when he wants to, and letting those around him make their own arrangements. If they want to get past him, they're going to have to really make a move. He's not going to put himself offline and outfox himself, because that's the thing here. You defend into one corner, and you're slow through the next 2 or 3. And Rich Hayden not falling into that trap and actually getting away now slightly from Elliot Dalton Ayres. We're almost exactly halfway through this 4th round of the championship, and Jack Smith has already got himself from the very back of the grid to the very front of the pack in race number 2. A double victory now, surely a formality. The big question is who's going to join him on the bottom steps of the podium, and in which order. Rich Hayden second at the moment, Elliot Dalton Ayres third, Jordan Taylor here leading this pack of cars in 4th position, with Andy Carroll having another really solid drive. Massively impressed with Andy Carroll tonight.
Yeah, no, he's doing very well, isn't he? I mean, we've got to talk about driver of the round. It is hard to see past Jack Smith, but Andy Carroll is one who, last week we gave it to Jordan Taylor for being fairly solid through the entirety of the evening. Well, Andy Carroll fits that bill right now, doesn't he? We enjoyed watching him in race 1. He's part of all the action. Race 2, he's fought his way through the order as well, and he's back in amongst that little gaggle of cars that he was in at race 1, which is, of course, the likes of Jordan Taylor, Carl Felvis, and Nicky Taylor. So the only thing is, the only driver that he hasn't got there is Andy Dorman, which is a bit of a shame that Andy has not necessarily had the best second race. In fact, where is Andy Dorman? He's down in 11th place. But Andy Carroll is doing very well.
He is. He might be about to do even better, actually. Closes in now on Jordan Taylor as they head up the hill. Looks to the inside line. And Andy Carroll, I think, is going to sweep through here into 4th place. Can he close the door on corner exit, though? That's the question. I don't think he can. Jordan Taylor back up the inside again now as they drop down the hill. And keep an eye on Kyle Felvers behind. These two delaying each other. He's going to get a big run down the hill and into the complex section. Who comes out on top? Taylor defending the inside. Still Andy Carroll trying the outside line. And Felvers now nibbling away behind the yellow and silver Hyundai, but he can't quite find a way through for now. We've also got Nicky Taylor in this group. These 4 drivers have been very evenly matched tonight, haven't they? In both races, they found themselves battling for the same piece of racetrack.
Yeah, no, very entertaining indeed, and I'm going to say it whilst touching my desk and touch wood, it's been slightly better in terms of driving standards as well, and we have got 8 minutes, lads, so don't make me throw it all away. It's a commentator's curse inbound, isn't it? But it does look that it has been very entertaining, and it's, as I said, at the moment, been quite clean, but they are starting to make moves on each other, so maybe I'll just shut my mouth, Andy.
Well, that was a good move, that from Nicky Taylor, actually, up the inside of Andy Carroll. Taylor's gone past Felvers and Carroll in the last 2 or 3 corners, so a good bit of driving that from Nicky in the Honda. He's back into the top 5 now. They're also being reeled in by Josh Martin, who's getting some advice, as always, from Dave in the chat, saying use some more hybrids and get past this lot. I don't think it's going to be quite that easy, but he's definitely arriving at a rate of knots, and he is using some hybrid now. The trouble is that so is pretty much everyone directly ahead of him on the road. Now, for 2nd place, Elliot Dalton-Ayres still cannot shake off Rich Hayden. He's been ahead of him a couple of times in this race, but then Rich has been able always to get him back again. Elliot Dalton-Ayres on the hybrid there down the pit straight, but despite that, Rich Hayden sticking with him, using the slipstream and considering making a move into turn 1. He's not quite close enough to do it, though, and so Elliot Dalton-Ayres goes back into 2nd. Now, will Rich choose to jump on the hybrid out of turn 1? Yes, he does, and surely now Dalton-Ayres will be a sitting duck. He's not able to use the hybrid for 10 seconds, I think it is, after his previous use, and he chooses not to use it at all, actually climbing up the hill. Rich Hayden sweeps back ahead of him and back into 2nd. This is a proper ding-dong battle.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. I was going to mention maybe it's something to do with the weight coming out of that final corner. As Rich is into 2nd place, he didn't look like he was getting dropped out of the final one. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is on 30 kilograms of ballast, whereas Rich, I'm pretty sure, is on 0 as far as I can see, actually. So there is really the slipstream and maybe getting out of a few corners that Rich is sort of clinging onto, and obviously using that hybrid in tactical locations. Oh my days, is that going to actually be a move? Elliot Dalton-Ayres around the outside there, Andy. Brilliant stuff.
I think it was. Bought himself a ticket to the inside line at the next corner as well, and that worked beautifully for the Hyundai driver, who does now move into 2nd place. Still 5.2 seconds adrift of the race leader, but at least best for the rest. Rich, though, is back on the hybrid again and looking to try and challenge as they drop down into turn number 10. Then we check back in again with the group behind then. Jordan Taylor, Nicky Taylor, Carl Felvers, Josh Martin, Andy Carroll, Oliver Gibson, Andy Dorman, all in this group as well, as they continue to punch together, dropping down into turn number 10, side by side there. Jordan Taylor looking to the outside of Nicky Taylor, with Carl Felvers behind, and it's Andy Carroll, really, isn't it, who's lost ground since we last saw them.
Yeah, it is slightly surprising given how much battling there's going on, but he's still in the group that Josh Martin has managed to find a way through, so maybe there was a little bit of a scrap in amongst the middle of this sort of group. Is that Andy? Oliver Gibson. Oliver Gibson has jumped up to the back of it as well, so it's likely we're going to see a BMW come into the fray. Well, another one actually, shall I say, because Josh Martin is of course already in the BMW. But Oliver Gibson 2nd place in race number 1, very quick of course. Are we going to see him manage to battle through the order? Only 5 minutes to go as they get very tight across the start-finish line, don't they? Jordan Taylor and Nicky Taylor. It's going to be Jordan Taylor who leads into the first corner, and Kyle Felvers has been overtaken by Josh Martin.
Yeah, they were both hybrid passes there. I think really nothing you can do to defend against those, but it didn't stop Nicky Taylor trying. Went almost right up to the pit wall there to try and block the road. That's Kyle Felvers out through the grass coming out of turn 1, and that means that both Andy Carroll and Oliver Gibson get the run on him heading up the hill towards turn number 3. How's this one going to pan out? Inside line there for Gibson, who finally is starting to pick his way through the order a bit. He is into 7th place now. Good opportunistic driving, but he's sideways through the right-hander. Almost loses control. That will definitely have overheated the rear tyres, and it's going to lose him a couple more places.
Yeah, I don't think there was any contact in there, was it? It was just a little bit of over-eagerness from Gibson, trying to get on the power a little bit too early, trying to compete with the front-wheel drives and maybe their application of it as well, but he couldn't quite make it happen. He's still sort of nudging his way, looking up the inside, but I don't think there's enough room for it, so he's going to have to try around the outside of Andy Carroll. Carl Felvis is going to have a little bit of a breather for a couple of corners. It's just Josh Martin is further up the road. This almost split 3 and 3 now, haven't they, Andy?
Yeah, they have. Although actually Andy Dorman joining that second group now to make it a four-way scrap. Down the hill they go. There go Taylor, Martin and Taylor. Martin the meat in that Taylor sandwich, but for how much longer? Tries to get to the inside of Jordan, who closed the door very much in his face there, dropping down the hill. Is there an overlap? There was. Martin scoots through but runs wide. Now the next corner's a left-hander. He could still come out of this on top, but he can't use the hybrid. Heading up the hill, doesn't need it. He goes through anyway, so Josh Martin up into 4th place, runs wide again though. Jordan Taylor gets the overlap, tries to sweep round the outside. Fantastic racing. This is exactly what we hoped we'd see tonight. And again, so far they're keeping it squeaky clean. Jordan Taylor goes back through, and here comes Nicky Taylor too.
Biggest mystery of the evening is why we've waited so long to come to this circuit. VRRC has been absolutely sensational, hasn't it? All the way up the grid and stuff. So, yeah, Jordan Taylor doing a fantastic job. Nicky Taylor right in the midst of it. Josh Martin trying to give his one fan, Dave, in the YouTube chat, something to shout about as well. But he's really putting on a bit of a show. Carl Felvis maybe just about getting away from Andy Carroll and Oliver Gibson and their little battle as they go side by side. And Carl seems to be jumping onto the back of the fight for the 4th place, actually, is Rich Hayden is doing a fantastic job at maintaining the speed in 3rd.
Yeah, really sticking with Dalton Ayres. Not sure what his hybrid situation is compared to Elliott, but you can see there, those two still circulating nose to tail and gapping now this almighty fight for 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, all in a line. This is great stuff, and it's Jordan Taylor who's the cork in the bottle right now, but I don't think that's because he's slow. I just don't think he can escape from them. They're all so evenly matched, and there's just no getting away from this marauding pack of cars. Dropping down the hill they go, and Jordan Taylor hangs on from Nicky Taylor, Josh Martin, Carl Felvis, Oliver Gibson, Andy Carroll and Andy Dorman all in a line. This, I would, if I was feeling pessimistic, say has trouble written all over it, Jack, but actually, so far, just really entertaining racing.
And they've held off for the time being, haven't they? There's only 2 minutes to go, lads. Please do keep this going, because it has been really fun to watch, and it's sort of, there've been a few squeaky bum moments, but that's what motorsport gives you, isn't it? It's that adrenaline that's sort of like watching these sort of close action. This is what we want, and yeah, even if it is sim racing rather than real racing, the drama is still there because we know people care about it so much. That's why they're so keen to make the moves, isn't it? But Jordan Taylor is absolutely nailing it. He's not just held on to the lead, he's also fought for it back. He's really, if he comes into a 4th place, if he comes across the line in 4th place, no one's got any objection, I don't think. He's done a fantastic job, and everybody else has been trying to find answers without actually seeing any permanent ones. It's been really good as Josh Martin and Carl Felvis get back onto the hybrids. Josh trying to claw his way up, maybe alongside Nicky Taylor at the top of the hill. How is it going to pan out? No, not quite close enough to any kind of move. The two Taylors holding each other up and therefore holding everybody else up behind as well. To come around the final corner, who's going to jump on the hybrid? It's going to be Oliver Gibson. I think Carl Felvis is in trouble.
Yeah, I think he might well be. Up the inside of Felvis he goes. Jordan Taylor defending from Nicky Taylor, or is he? Nicky might have found a gap on the inside line. Can he go through? No, he can't. But Gibson's up the inside of Josh Martin. 2 wheels on the dirt. Tried to get cheeky there and take 2 places for the price of 1, but settles in just ahead of Felvis, still behind Josh Martin. And now they climb the hill up towards turn 3 again. Side by side, still further back between Carl Felvis and Oliver Gibson, as Kyle now tries to come back. The BMW driver onto the brakes. Up the inside, in fact, goes Felvis. Felvis goes from gaining 1 place to gaining 2. Josh Martin gets roughed up slightly, and Felvis is back into 6th.
Yeah, the two Taylors are surviving, aren't they? Watching a hell of a show in their rearview mirrors. Martin, Gibson, Carroll, almost Dorman actually jumping onto the back of this one. It is really boiling over now. It's Felvis trying to go around the outside of Josh Martin. Was Josh Martin up the inside? I've lost track at this point, Andy. All I can say is there's cars everywhere, and it's absolutely manic. And of course, there was going to be contact 1 second before the final lap board came out. Oliver Gibson, 2nd place in race 1, has been turned around.
There was contact, but he might have been sideways already. He was already struggling for rear grip, wasn't he, Oliver Gibson? He might have had a moment. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and amazingly, he's the only one actually to get spat out of this pack so far. Less than half a lap to go there. Down the hill we go into turn number 10 for the final time, and Josh Martin re-overtaken again by Carl. Is Martin slowing? I think he is. Carroll's going through as well. No, what's going on with Josh Martin? Through has gone Andy Dorman. Did he have a hardware problem? I do not know what that was about, but Josh Martin seemingly giving places away willingly halfway around the final lap of the race. Jack Smith wasn't doing that, though. He started from pole in race 1 and dominated to win, and this time around he's going to win by 11 seconds, having started at the back of the field. Fantastic performance from Jack Smith, who does the double here at Brno. Second place eventually should go the way of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who's now 1.7 seconds clear of Rich Hayden. And there they go. So Dalton-Ayres second, Hayden third. And then, well, place your bets, everyone. Here they come. It is Nicky Taylor, Jordan Taylor, Carl Felmus, Andy Carroll, and Andy Dorman, all in a long line with Fabrizio Torri next. And Josh Martin, I think, might be low on fuel because he has continued to lose ground on the final lap and ends up coming through in 11th place. But if he'd run out of fuel, you'd expect him to have stopped much sooner than that. That's a little bit strange, but it's certainly going to cost him an awful lot of places, and it means that he finishes, well, in the end, outside of the top 10. 11th place for him, and that is really unfortunate after what had been, up until that point, a really strong night of racing. So drama aplenty then here in the second race of the evening. We'll have all the reaction from our podium finishers in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back, everybody, to Brno, where we have just witnessed a really fabulous race, a dominant performance from our race winner, but behind him, some really good racing, some of the best nose-to-tail, side-by-side racing we've had here at the VRRC for quite some time. The Brno circuit, they're living up to expectations, and certainly has been a happy hunting ground for our double race winner. We've had 4 races so far this season, 3 of them won by Jack Smith, and Jack, you've not been off the podium yet. Pretty much the perfect start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can actually get a better race too than what I just did. So, yeah, that's probably the best race I've ever done in my life. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was pretty mad. But yeah, fair play to everyone. I thought there'd be a bit more of a defense, but it just sort of seemed to happen, and then end up P5 after lap 1, which was like I had to double take when I saw the real time. But yeah, that was a bit of a mad race. Props to everyone because that was some really clean racing as well. So, and it's good to hear that it lived up to expectations because that's exactly what I thought would happen behind me.
Yes, unfortunately, it means we didn't see a lot of you. I'll put that out there now because you were 11 seconds clear by the flag. I'm always interested to chat to drivers about this. When you're that far ahead, and let's face it, you know that barring something pretty awful happening, the race wins in the bag. What's going through your mind? Are you still giving every corner, every apex 100% of your concentration, or do you allow yourself to sort of start writing that winner's speech a bit early?
To be honest with you, when it's just me by myself, I just go into this sort of endurance mode. It happens in real life as well. I just sort of zone out and just drive, and then all of a sudden the checker flag's there. So yeah, it's strange. I don't know whether it happens to everyone else, but yeah, that's just what happens to me. And yeah, I just drive pretty much. Yeah.
As simple as that. Well, I don't think you're going to have it quite as simple next week. Mugello, very different kind of circuit. Is that a track, though, that you think will suit the BMW and you as well as this place clearly has?
It's got a couple long sweeping corners similar to here, so it might be a similar story, but you never know until practice starts up. So Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think a lot of these European tracks might be rear-wheel drive bias, which is, I think, again, why a few others have gone for the BMW, and it's certainly showing that it's more than capable in these circuits. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see and find out. But yeah, really happy with the first 4 races. Yeah, couldn't be happier, and the teams up there as well, which is mega. So yeah, again, shout out to all the sponsors for DK Power, Mike and everyone at Sam Fort Motor Services and Sherburn Rubber and Hop Cavern. Big up to Lee, I know he's watching.
Good stuff. Nicely done, Jack. Huge congratulations. Nearly the perfect night as far as the points are concerned. And 2 race wins. Not a bad evening at all. Congratulations. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, cheers, Andy.
So Jack Smith, then double race winner here at Brno. The real action, though, Jack, was happening behind him, and much of it in the battle for second centered around Elliot Dalton-Ayres.
It was, yeah. I think Jack Smith potentially had putting that hat on gave him the extra power. I'd fear for when he puts it backwards like Ash Ketchum. But anyway, yes, I do have a probably very happy Elliot Dalton-Ayres. I imagine quite a hard-working Elliot Dalton-Ayres as well. It must be a little bit sweaty after that one.
Yeah, but to be honest, I'm not too happy. I mean, the car was just so understeery and horrible to drive. So I'm really glad that tonight's over, because the car was just absolutely horrific. But somehow we got second place.
Well, you had a proper good ding-dong with the likes of Jack Smith and Rich at the end there as well. We were on board with quite a lot of it, of sort of on Jack's on board, having a look at you in the rearview mirror, trying to get past him while he was trying to get past Rich and everything like that. It looked like a really intense battle.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Jack got past me pretty quickly, but I tried to get back at him, but I think he just snuck through on Rich, and then it was just kind of me versus Rich for the past like 10 minutes. But yeah, it was a really good battle with Rich, and I think we both pulled off some pretty good moves. So yeah.
You scored very well last week. You ended up within the top 3 of the scores. I think you won the second race last week. Second place in race 2 here today as well. Are you sort of confident that you can keep that sort of thing going, or are you sort of thinking, well, how on earth have this actually happened?
I don't know, really. I keep getting bad luck in race 1 with Magnic, or me having a really high ping and getting shuffled down, and then this one just getting shuffled down a little bit and a tap on the rear, which cost me quite a few places. So hopefully I can keep it going. But I guess I'm kind of feeling confident with 2 podiums.
Yeah, I would as well if I were you. Hopefully you don't have the ping problems next week or any time onwards. Congratulations, Elliot. It was really good entertainment as well. So we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done to Elliot. Solid night all round for him, and nice to see him end it with a podium finish. And I think that's it for podium interviews, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know anybody else to chat to.
No, I think we are. No, of course. 3rd place finish. How could we forget? A welcome return to the VRRC podium for one Rich Hayden. And Rich, that is just the way you want to try and get a podium finish, isn't it? As we just heard from Elliot, a cracking race-long battle. I bet you enjoyed that.
Do you know what? That was a lot of fun. There's a little bit of life in the old dog yet, eh? I had a shocking race 1. Caught a wheel on a curb, spun me round, put me into the barriers, destroyed the car. So I had to limp round, which fortunately put me on reverse pole. And then I just was looking in my mirrors waiting for the BMWs to arrive, if I'm totally honest with you. And then when Jack came up, I didn't put up too much of a fight. I just really didn't think it was worth it, to be honest with you. One thing I didn't want to do was start getting ragged and racing with Jack, when obviously there's a championship for him to win, potentially. So then obviously Elliot came up behind me. That was a different story. I always like to have a little battle with Elliot, and he's a really good, clean driver, so it was a lot of fun. I just made a couple of mistakes towards the end and dropped back a little bit, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It seemed like one of the keys in that race, particularly when you were in the lead and you did have Jack Smith behind you, was to not over-defend. It's really one of those circuits, isn't it, where if you start driving around the inside, you're just going to slow everyone up, and we really didn't see any of that from you. Is that something you were very aware of in the moment?
There's one fast line around this track, And if you stray from it, there's so many corners that are either late apexes or you're coming over a brow and the circuit's dropping away from you, or it's coming towards you. So it's a really technical track. It doesn't look particularly technical when you look at the track map, but actually to get a really good time out of this, you have to be pinpoint accurate. So yeah, absolutely. As soon as you started battling, you just dropping backwards into everybody else.
Absolutely, which you managed to perfection, Rich. So huge congratulations! Great to see you on the podium. Chance of a repeat of this maybe as the season goes on?
Oh, I doubt it.
Brilliant. We admire the realism, Rich. I personally have faith. I know you're pretty handy in that Cupra. Almost as quick as me when we've had a go on it on the sim in the past. So, hey, who knows? Hopefully we will get the chance to chat to you again. But, Rich, huge congratulations from us all for making it into the top 3.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to everybody for this evening.
Good stuff. Rich Hayden then on the podium in our second race of the weekend. Now, what does all of that mean for the points, I wonder? 4 races in. And, well, I'll warn you, if you're a Jack Smith fan, this will make for very pleasant reading. If you're anyone else, perhaps look away now. Jack Smith, 106 points is his advantage. That is a lot over Elliot Dalton-Ayres on 68 points for second place. But then look how close it is. Oliver Gibson, 67. Then you go down to 62 for Nicky Taylor, 59 for Josh Martin and Jordan Taylor. It is early days, though. Drop scores will start to take effect as we go through. And, of course, if Jack Smith keeps on winning races and keeps on failing to finish off the podium, then he's going to be dropping a lot more points than everybody else. But right now, he looks as though he's going to be tough to beat, that's for sure. But with 6 weeks of racing still to go, Jack, anything's possible.
It is, yeah. The fight for second place may well end up being a slightly more interesting than the fight for first, if Jack Smith has anything to say about it. But that fight for second does look very tasty, doesn't it? And the likes of Josh Martin and Jordan Taylor on tied points with top 5. Remember, the prizes do go back all the way to the top 5. And that's not all the prizes we've got, of course. They got Driver of the Round that we have to mention. And we have decided that at some point we're likely to give it to Jack Smith. And if there's ever a week that we were to give it to Jack Smith, utterly so totally dominant, not using the hybrid very often, smashing the pole position time, getting through and winning race 2 as well as cleanly and as quickly as he did. It's this week, isn't it? So Jack Smith is going to be our driver of the round, and he'll take home that NGK jacket. And we had the fan of the round as well, which we decided for Dave on the YouTube chat as well. We've given Dave it before as the top fan, and there were some close competitors, don't get me wrong, but there are a few of his racing driver excuses that were coming out on behalf of Josh Martin, who it really did make us chuckle at the end after the checker flag of race number 2. So, by the way, apparently he was stuck in third gear. That is the reason why Josh Martin was fallen down. But Dave at least can enjoy a nice bobble hat for when it gets a bit chillier.
Excellent. Perhaps he can donate it to Josh Martin's racewear, his new fashion line of increasingly unlikely outfits to go sim racing in. Maybe we'll see that in the weeks to come. Right then, that is the racing action done then for this week at Brno. But as I said, 6 weeks of racing still to go in the VRRC Touring Car Championship Season 5. We head to Mugello in Italy in a week's time. Then we are in Barcelona in Spain, Red Bull Ring in Austria, then Zandvoort, Donington Park, and it all finishes at Germany's Hockenheim on the 4th of October. Well, will we be crowning Jack Smith champion, I wonder, come season's end? At the moment, all the signs point to that being a distinct possibility, but with 6 weeks of racing still to go, the rest will definitely be hoping to start cutting into that advantage he holds over the coming weeks. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. It's been another fantastic night of racing here at the VRRC with some fantastic nose-to-tail action in both of our races, and we look forward to doing it all again in a week's time. Make sure you tune in once more on the here at the VRRC, nearly, to follow the next rounds of racing. Would I, Rich? Would I? But for now, from myself, Andy McEwan, Jack Oliphant, Lewis Edwards, Rich Hayden, and everyone else here at the VRRC, thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show as much as we did. We'll be back to do it all again in a week's time.